send it to the board members in advance, and I would take it and I would try to understand it on the basis of what I'd heard the last time, so that then I became more conversant in the actual language that she was speaking. I didn't even know some of these terms that she was using.
Did she make an effort to explain it to you?
Yes, she did. And actually, I went to her and I said, you know, Peg, I think I need some private lessons with you. And she said, you know what, Gloria, that would be great, because I know if I teach you, you will teach everybody else. So it's the old, you know, the mother, if you educate the mother will go out and educate all the, you know, the rest of the family. So I've been able to learn a great, and it's not that I know everything, believe me, but I want to say, now I feel that I can be part of the conversation when it's happening. I can ask questions. I can understand the answers, at least in the most elementary terms.
Because the old way used to be, everybody took care of their little slice of the pie. So for all of you, you played the music, and then when contract time came, you knew what you wanted and what you thought you deserved. And it was up to management to go and find that money, which they were once able to do. But not anymore.
It's harder. It's
harder.
Much more difficult.
It's much harder. So you have to be more cooperative and more informed about making your demands, because you have to make ones that could be realized. And if you're not intelligent about doing that and informed about doing it, by the way, the same thing applies to management. I'm not saying musicians have any special responsibility here. And I trust that the management is learning more about the musicians as you're learning more about them. But if these things aren't decided with full knowledge of what's possible, then it can get ugly to no point.
It's true. But one example of how knowing the finances helped us to come to terms in this last contract was, one of the things that the management was asking was for us to perform a Sunday series. Well, I have to tell you, in Philadelphia, nobody's ever done anything on Sunday outside of Play the Messiah one Sunday a year, and that was, you know, like a paid extra thing to have to perform on a Sunday, and Sundays are really pretty sacrosanct in the Philadelphia Orchestra. And it became obvious that this was a place for them to create a new series for a new type of audience. So we agreed to this sort of experiment, and I think we added, it was either 4 or 5 Sundays for this series. Well, we're getting ready to play the first one this next Sunday, and the series sold 80% sold out by subscription. And of that 80% of those people, of the total, there are 8,000 new subscribers who've never subscribed to the Philadelphia Orchestra. New names on our list. So we can point to that and say, you know, we gave up something there, but look what we gained. And those 8,000 new subscribers are people that we can also solicit for annual fund and other donations to help us run the organization.
Always important, especially in a climate like the one we have now, to bring new
faces.
But tell me something that management has learned.
They learned. I think they've learned to bring the musicians in on the ground floor on every major decision. And I think they've learned how the musicians in general are very bright and creative people, and are generally quite accomplished at many other things. And to bring their voices to the table makes the conversation richer, so that when you distill down to where your final result, it's just going to be at a higher level. Plus, you've got the buy-in, because everybody started at the beginning with the project. It's not something the management dreamed up and then said, oh, here, and by the way, will you sign on to this? Or we're going to have you do this because it's legal. It says we can do so in the contract. Right. And so even if there's something that they can do in the contract, they'll come to us and discuss it now, because they'll know that we may have an extra idea to add to the pot that's going to make the result that much better.
So you can contribute to the way the orchestra is run and suggest management things that they didn't think of, and they're open to this.
Absolutely. They really encourage it.
Now, in what other areas can you imagine the musicians being empowered?
Empowered. Well,
that's a big word.
I'll tell you another one. The one that's really just brought tremendous joy to me is that we have this initiative in Philadelphia called Raising the Invisible Curtain. And one of our projects under Raising the Invisible Curtain is that we've started having musicians speak from the stage at various times.
Because the idea of this, just to step back for a moment so people understand, is to make the orchestra more accessible, both to its existing audience and then to the people who don't come, to the community at large.
So when we first started this about a year and a half ago, there was so much grumbling about it. Oh, we don't want anybody out there talking before we're going to play a serious concert, and I'm not going to do that, and who's going to do it, and you know, all this kind of thing. So we started out with a very small core of people, and we had worked with Eric Booth, who was really terrific, and coaching us in this type of audience engagement.
Yeah, Eric being just a star consultant, one of the consultants who actually makes a tremendous difference.
Absolutely.
Because there's some spark that jumps from him.
Yes.
And you learn how to do it too, how to make a spark jump from you.
You learn how to do
it
from his example,
yes.
which is great, because as musicians, that's how we learn all the time. That's how we interact.
Yes.
You play something, I respond
Yes.
to it. And Eric's mentoring is like that. And anyway, we had spent some time with Eric. And in fact, I must say, we had the highest attendance at a meeting with Eric that we have ever had in the orchestra outside of a contract ratification. We had 70 some odd members of the orchestra come for a dinner meeting with Eric, where Eric worked with us. But at any rate, we started this. And, you know, there was a little grumbling, but it took off. You know, one person got up, it was very good, we got great audience feedback. Every person that got up had worked with either Eric or our new animateur, Tom Cabanis. An animateur it comes from the London Symphony Orchestra, was the orchestra that came up with this initial concept. And they had the animateur position, and the man, and I can't remember his name at the moment, but anyway, he went to the Berlin Philharmonic to become the animateur there, but he trained all these animateurs in Europe, and we had a teleconference with them in Europe, in London.
But it sounds like an animator.
It is. That's exactly what he is.
So it animates the orchestra musicians
it teaches,
so that they can come
right,
out of
to
themselves.
engage with. It gives you all kinds of techniques so that you can engage with your audience. But sometimes the animateur will lead a student concert or a family concert, or sometimes the animateur will speak at an event with the orchestra and interact with the conductor on the podium and the audience and the orchestra.
So it's somebody whose job is to create interaction between all elements of the orchestra community, but public interaction that really shows and makes a difference.
I saw him do an amazing event. Once a year, when we do our annual subscription, when we're talking about the introduction of the season, the new season. Well, Tom Cabanis, this was his first year, and he had created this event that was going to be the announcement of the season. And so as member of the board, I thought, well, okay, I better go. It's in the middle of the afternoon. It was at like 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon or some strange time. And I thought, okay, I'll go back in town for this, but I feel an obligation to show up at this. Imagine my surprise. I walked into the hall, and there were, I don't know, 1,500 people there in the middle of the afternoon. I thought, what are all these people doing here? You know, this is just supposed to be a press thing. Tom had created an event. Emanuel Ax was playing on the stage with Christoph Eschenbach playing the accompaniment for him, and they were talking about the introduction of the Beethoven series, and then they fielded questions. And then there was like a video presentation of some other parts of the season. And then there were going to be 3 different composers that were going to compose, and they were all there, and they were talking to the audience about what their compositions were going to be. And one of the compositions was going to be celebrating the Benjamin Franklin's 300th anniversary. And of course, Benjamin Franklin is a big deal in Philadelphia. And so here they had the glass harmonica from the Franklin Institute, and one of the percussionists was out demonstrating the glass harmonica in the hall. He was in the audience demonstrating this thing. And the composer was up on stage asking the audience, now when you think of Benjamin Franklin, what sorts of ideals do you think about? Because he wanted ideas to put in his piece that he was writing. So he was actually involving the audience in his creative process.
So, you know, bringing this whole discussion around, you all as musicians get involved in this kind of creative process, and if all really goes well with this, you're not just sitting there playing the notes in your part, with granted a lot of creativity and a lot of commitment, but now you can be involved in things like, what does Benjamin Franklin mean for Philadelphia? What does he mean today? What do questions like that have to do with the Philadelphia Orchestra's role in the community and the world?
Because we have an American Symphony Orchestra League conducting fellow that we hired. The American Symphony Orchestra League brought us 5 really talented, really qualified people to choose from. We auditioned them, we chose one, and we were working with him, and I'm on his mentoring team. So I now get the chance, you know, and it was really interesting because